All right, let's go to our final game of this match day that we wanted to chat about. We alluded to it at the start of the show. That's Borussia Dortmund beat VfL Wolfsburg 1-0. Niko Kovac learned his lesson from the Juventus game really quick, I would say. He's like, we can't have that ever again. No fun allowed, no fun police, in the form of Niko Kovac, who basically told his guys, look, we get that one goal, and that's it. We're going to shut things down. We're going to win this game. And I expect you to do this 95% of the time this season. And the 5% was the game against Juventus. So you're no longer allowed to do this ever again. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think if Dortmund will want to have success this year and win the Bundesliga title as you predicted, beat Bayern Munich to it, I think we're going to see a lot of games like the Wolfsburg game. I think that is unfortunately the key to success. He has set that team up to be tight, to be aggressive in the attack, of course. But now Nico Schlotterbeck is back. The defensive line is a lot better, right? He slots into that middle between Benzebaini and Anton. And lo and behold, you have your first clean sheet. I think what is happening, and there was some luck, right? There was that goal that didn't stand because it just, like, what was it, like a millimeter that it didn't cross the line? Yeah, just about, line, very close. So there's still these moments that Dortmund have, but I think Niko Kovac, and I kind of appreciate this. We've talked for years about how every single head coach who came in kind of tried to emulate what Jurgen Klopp has done. Right, Edin Terzic is maybe the first who kind of tries to break with it by playing defensive football, but because he is from that Dortmund school and he's a Dortmund guy, and isn't quite able to do it. Niko Kovac comes in and he is a bit of a bureaucrat, and I mean, this is the thing that cost him the job at Bayern Munich, right? The Bayern bosses just didn't like the football he was playing. He didn't like that he would go to somewhere like Anfield and like defend and park the bus like Jose Mourinho style to get a 0-0 draw. Like, they didn't like that. They just really, really didn't like it. But I think his football and his football philosophy and the way he wants to play and the way he wants to be successful is falling on fertile ground in Dortmund, because they haven't won anything in a while. All they really want is stability. I think there is now a large portion of the fans are just willing to win something no matter what. And so I think this is going to work, Stefan. I think there is still a process that they have to go through to make it work and be successful with it. But I think we're going to see a lot of games like the Wolfsburg game this season.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, it seems a bit silly to say coming off the back of that Juventus game, but it is worth bearing in mind that, I mean, obviously it finished with 8 goals, but as we said after the match, we did our bonus show reaction, at least 4 of the goals in that game were absolutely world-class shots. One of them was a penalty, so it didn't really come down to a lack of defending from either teams. It was just one of those games where every incredible shot went in and there's not much the goalkeepers could do about it. But yeah, we've been saying this for a few weeks now. Dortmund are a team that, when you look at their lineup, 8 of the guys on that team are there to win the ball, to work hard, to run themselves into the ground, and then Guirassy, maybe Adeyemi, maybe Julian Brandt, maybe Maximin Bayer. 2 or 3 of the guys in that entire lineup are there to score the goals. Everyone else is just there to make sure Dortmund don't lose this game. And that's kind of what's been working for them. I guess you could say they're a little bit lucky, as you said, because Wolfsburg had a shot cannon off the crossbar, looked like it bounced over the line, and then apparently didn't from goal line technology. But had there not been goal line technology, I reckon the referee would have absolutely given that goal, because as you said, like 98% of the ball was over the line. And Dortmund ultimately won the game through an absolutely outstanding shot from outside the box from Karim Adeyemi, who's had a great start to the season, by the way, so that's really worth mentioning as well. So, maybe, but then equally, if he doesn't score that goal, maybe Dortmund make more of a push for a goal. So you never really know how in these what if scenarios. But I think, I kind of said it was boring, productive, and Dortmund pick up all 3 points. And maybe, as you said, that's exactly what they need at this point in their, history or their cycle, whatever you want to call it. because you're right, they have had so many kind of Jurgen Klopp pretenders, and the only head coach who's actually came anywhere close to it, Manuel, both in the Bundesliga and the Champions League, was Edin Terzic, and that was by playing very defensive football. So I think I'm feeling quite good about Dortmund right now, to be honest with you. As I said, I think they'd challenge Bayern for the title. I think they could win it this season by all means. And Kovac's tactics are absolutely the reason I think that. I think he's got the tactics to grind out these kind of results, because I think 2 or 3 seasons ago, especially under Nuri Sahin, Dortmund would have probably drew this game or somehow found a way to lose it 2-1. I think Kovac has a way of getting points from the big games. But I also think they've managed to actually, and this is to Dortmund's credit, and I'm not always keen to give Dortmund too much credit in the transfer window, but I think if you look at that squad, and if you look at the way that Kovac has actually used guys like Bellingham and Julian Brandt and Chukwuemeka as kind of impact subs, I think that kind of shows that Dortmund do have a degree of depth that maybe they haven't had for quite some time now. I think it says a lot that, and there's 2 sides to that. There's the one side where they've obviously bought players. They've obviously, Bellingham was a record signing. They brought in Chukwuemeka, who they signed. And there's other players in that team that have kind of helped fill in the blanks. But it's also 100% down to the fact that Kovac is getting the absolute best out of squad players who didn't perform under previous head coaches. When Kovac arrived, Bensebaini was a laughingstock. When he arrived, Felix Mecha was not the player that Dortmund thought they'd signed. Sabitzer was gathering dust on the bench. All these kind of players he's managed to make more of because he's a very good head coach, So it's kind of doubled up. He's got the best out of the squad players, but he's also managed to bring in players to get more out of them. And I think it means Dortmund squad's a lot more formidable than it has been in recent years. Was this the best game in the world? Absolutely not. Guirassy in particular was very, very quiet. Maximilian Bayer, very quiet. Maybe they relied on a kind of wonder shot from Adeyemi, but if I was a Dortmund fan, I'd be bored senseless, but I'd at least be happy that they look a lot more competent than they have done a long time.
I think that was only jumped as high as it needed to in this game, to be honest with you. I think there's a very strong argument to be made about that. I watched this game, and I thought, but they were terrible because they had no chance to get into this game. They bring on Eriksen. Yeah, that's a great story for the Bundesliga and all that, blah, blah. But I never really had the feeling that, the one shot aside. But you know what? That goes in. Dortmund will just score a second. They win the 2-1, right? That's the sense that I had here. And, you talk about these guys. Every single one of those players has gotten better since Kovac has gotten there, right? Maxi Bayer, how much did we praise Dortmund when they signed him? And then he was just a shell for his entire first season. This wasn't his best game by any stretch, but had so many dangerous moments. That speed that he has and the ability to take down a ball at high speed and get into the box, that makes him such a dangerous player to defend, almost impossible to defend at time, right? And he can create these moments. And they had Sahin had no ability to utilize that whatsoever. And Kovac comes and he's like, I'm going to play Guirassy, Bayer, and Adeyemi together. Period. I'm going to play these 3 guys together because this is how it's supposed to be. And now looking back, maybe that was the plan when Dortmund signed these guys, and they just didn't have the head coach who could do it. But it just works. And I think Kovac is also very set in his starting 11. There isn't much rotation. You can probably dictate that starting 11 down now, right? It's this. Maybe Brandt gets his occasional start, but for whom, right? Maybe Joe Bellingham will get a few starts here for Nemcha when he needs to be rested. Carney is going to get fed into the starting 11, but don't expect him to be a part of that starting 11 until the second half of the season. We've spoken about this on the show. He comes in with an injury record longer than it would fit on Transfermarkt's homepage, right? So he needs a good half year, 8 months to just work on his body, go on the training pitch. He's not a player that can play a full load at the moment. So his plan is to be slowly fed into the team and be someone for the second half of the season, right? And Kovac is being is being steadfast with their plan. Carney comes on in the 65 minute and gets his minutes, but he's not being relied on at the moment, which is what is to be expected. He's weathered the storm with the Bellingham controversy. You see me fingers if you watch this on YouTube. He doesn't care. Bellingham is still only coming in off. He's a talent. He was a big name. His brother is a big deal in Dortmund, all that kind of stuff. But he still comes from a second division promoted team to Dortmund. He's a talent. He will have to fight for his place in the starting 11. He's not just going to be given to it. And there's been too many coaches in the past where that wasn't the case. And Kovac doesn't care. He's steadfast. And I like that. And I think it's going to lead to success, Stefan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Brandt thing's really interesting. He's only started one game so far this season. As you said, Bellingham's coming off the bench, Jukomeka's coming off the bench. I think that system they play, the 3-4-3, allows Kovac to kind of limit Dortmund's kind of maybe weaknesses. I mean, how many times have we watched Dortmund over the years where someone like Julian Brandt's playing as number 10 or playing out wide and he doesn't track his runner? Dortmund get caught on the counter-attack. But you're looking at a system, they've got three at the back, three central defenders who've all played really well. Anton's been solid, Schlotterbeck came back in, as you said, Ben Spani's been good. Two really hard-working fullbacks in Svensson and Ryerson. Kutu has also done really well on that right-hand side as well. And Sabitzer and Memcha, who are both ball-winning midfielders. So at any point where Dortmund lose the ball, they've got 7 players there to try and win it back, as opposed to last season where it would be, a back four that was completely paper thin, a midfield of like Emre Can and Oz Can, who both of them just simply weren't good enough in my opinion, and then like someone like Julian Brandt making a half-hearted attempt to track someone down. So he's completely flipped that element of Dortmund being, we talked about how open Frankfurt are in the counter-attack. It's really hard to break this Dortmund team down if you do try and counter-attack on them because they are so rigid at the back there. So yeah, Manu, I think it's really impressive from Dortmund. It wasn't the best game in the world, but I think that's okay. And it's worth noting, actually, I just checked there, since the start of the year, only Bayern Munich have now picked up more points in the Bundesliga than Dortmund, who are level with Leverkusen. So, slowly but surely, Kovac has got Dortmund back to being the second best team in Germany, and deserves credit for
absolutely.
that.
And we'll see how the story continues.